Welcome back to Building the Bonds of Attachment. I think we need a recap. Last time we explored the story of the trout lily, I suppose. This flower Katie had picked for her foster mother Jackie, hoping she would love it, but when Jackie didn't react with the joy Katie had hoped for, it felt like a massive rejection. Katie ran off and then threw stones at Jackie, and it was a very, very emotional moment. Jackie helped bring her back down and then soothed Katie when suddenly she realised, oh my god, I just hurt Jackie, I made her bleed. That makes me feel like an awful, awful person. And there was a therapy session following this scene that I skipped last video, to talk briefly instead about the section after that where Katie has started to hit herself, attempting to hold back the rage she would often throw at Jackie to instead unleash it upon herself. I think I would like to go back to that therapy session though, and to talk a little more about Katie's self-harm, because... alright, let's discuss that one first. Katie's rage did not just simply disappear. She still exploded, but she did so less frequently and with less intensity. What was increasing was the rage she directed towards herself. She began hitting herself in the face or banging her head against the wall. She seemed to want to limit her rage at Jackie, and was willing to hit herself if it helped to do so. You see, last time I talked a bit about how difficult this is for Katie, but that the rage doesn't have to destroy everything. It is just an emotion that can be expressed and contained and understood. It doesn't have to ruin her relationship with Jackie, you know? She shouldn't have to worry that expressing anger with Jackie will destroy their entire bond, and a big part of what Jackie does is try to explain that. Your mad feelings do not have to be the boss of you, Katie. They don't have to be connected to hitting and hurting. Feeling mad is simply a feeling, and can be a signal that something's bothering you. Which, yes, I discussed last time, so let's not retread the same grounds too much. The reason I've brought it up again is because the thing I didn't emphasise enough is that this increased effort of Katie's to please Jackie, essentially. Make sure she is liked by Jackie, do something nice for her, like pick flowers for her, prevent herself from doing something bad, like shouting at Jackie, by instead hitting herself. Not that she's only doing that to please her, I mean, I think she does just genuinely want to make her happy. But whilst it's not being explored or expressed in the healthiest manner, this is still an important part of Katie seeing Jackie as much more of a separate, independent, complete person. Jackie isn't just this object who exists for Katie, represents something for Katie. This person who is either totally mean because she stops Katie doing the things she wants, or totally good because she lets Katie do the things she wants. Which, even that second one, does it feel like Jackie is being nice and allowing fun things because she's nice, because she wants Katie to be happy, or does she feel more like Jackie is just allowing that to happen because Katie is the one in control, Katie is the one with the power, I have successfully manipulated this, she was unable to stop me, I am the omnipotent controlling object who pulled the strings, which is a fantasy I'm sure we must have talked about in the past with a much younger Katie. The baby's fantasy of omnipotence. Partly it is a defence for how out of control and helpless the baby feels, partly splitting for how it sees Jackie as either all bad and persecuting or all caring and positive. But obviously people can be both good and bad, and sometimes not for reasons of either just being mean or just being submissive to you. The closer Katie had been bonding with Jackie, the more of her rage that's been contained and processed, and the more shame that's been broken down, the more Katie can start to realise there might be other motives to Jackie. The more Katie is able to not just see her for what she represents within Katie's internal world, but also for who she genuinely is. I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but it's worth re-emphasising. This is what Melanie Klein famously calls the depressive position. She argues there were kind of two states of the mind. The first is what we have seen in Katie, viewing Jackie much less like a person. This was called the paranoid schizoid position. I think I may have discussed this in a Coraline video actually. Melanie Klein talked about the baby seeing the carer as either the good breast or the bad breast, like two totally opposed forms there, but both born out of seeing this carer as part of the baby itself. The carer exists for me, her life revolves around me. Either she's there and giving me food and comfort, or if she's not doing that, it can't possibly be because she has an outside life. If she's not here offering me care, it must be something evil and persecuting. She must want me to starve. I hate her for it. I hate this side of my mother. And to an extent, these are normal feelings for a baby to have or an infant to have. But then there's the depressive position. The position of, oh my god, What if it's not that my mum hated me and wanted me to die? What if she just had something else that needed doing at the time? That's why I was left alone and felt so afraid and abandoned and like I was going to starve. And I think we're kind of seeing that here with Katie. What if Jackie gets mad not because she hates me, but she just sometimes gets a little mad at the situation, or she was taken aback, or she's afraid for my safety? Sometimes that manifests in what seems like anger. What if she wasn't rejecting me when I picked that flower for her? What if she was just a bit shocked and sad because the trout lily shouldn't be picked, but that she loves me no less? What if she is a complex person with all sorts of feelings of her own, independent from me? That's mind-blowing, but also very uncomfortable, and this is why it's called the depressive position, because if this carer you love who is kind to you is the same person as the carer who appeared mean and that you hated and projected all of your rage onto, then, oh my god, I've been spewing hatred at the person who loves me. She might not like me for doing that. Guilt emerges. Then, if given space, empathy. Which, when you think about what empathy is, it's basically that. Seeing other people are totally independent with their own thoughts and feelings separate from ours. Recognising that. This is positive for Katie then, and we see that in the text here, just a paragraph before we get to the mention of Katie hitting herself. During May 1995, Katie continued to explore her relationship with Jackie as if it was a completely new experience. And it was. She began to notice Jackie as a separate person. Jackie would find Katie staring at her frequently throughout the day. Katie would look away when Jackie smiled. How wonderful is even that little act of staring? Not because she's demanding Jackie's attention here. No, Katie looks away when she does get the attention. That's not what she's after. She's trying here to think about Jackie, to observe her and understand her as she is. Just, how amazingly cool it is that she's attempting to do that, wanting to do that. Katie also seemed to be trying to understand Jackie's motives for doing things. It seems that, whereas Katie had always assumed that Jackie did things to her because she was mean, didn't like her, or didn't care about what she wanted, now Katie seemed to be trying to work out if there were other reasons. Maybe Jackie was just trying to teach her something. Maybe Jackie just needed to get something done. Maybe she needed help. Maybe she enjoyed helping her. Katie was noticing, watching Jackie carefully, and learning who her mother was. This is an amazing, wonderful, positive thing to be happening, but we can also see naturally out of this why Katie might start hitting herself, which is also why I decided to mention the depressive position. Guilt is a relatively new experience for Katie to be sitting with, rather than just defensively projecting back onto Jackie or whoever, and it's really hard. If Jackie's not the evil, horrible, bad one, what if that means I am? What if she's going to get annoyed and fed up with how horrible I am? That question, I suppose, was one we discussed way back in the earliest chapters, where Katie was kind of trying to prove how much they hated her, prove that they would give up on her, and how triumphant it was for her to prove that with all these previous foster parents. But no, here it is an awful, frightening prospect. Because another part of Katie feels Jackie's love, lets it in, accepts it, wants it. What if I damage that? I don't want to lose that now. If it is independent from me, then maybe I can't entirely possess it. You see, the thing Katie has yet to really take in here is that just because Jackie might not be an awful, horrible person, doesn't consequently mean that Katie is. She's not bad either. Feeling rage doesn't make her bad, won't destroy their relationship. She doesn't need to beat herself up for feeling that. Kind of shaming herself now for feeling rage. So, the same kind of thinking could be applied to Katie herself. What if I do mean, angry things, not because I'm awful and hate Jackie, but because I'm upset about something specific? What if I'm just trying to show her that, but also not very good at expressing it right now? What if I do love her and I am a good person, I'm just also sometimes upset? And I think this is a big part of why Jackie is so calm in response to Katie's self-harm. Well, Katie, Jackie said after school on May 16th, when she noticed Katie smacking her face. This occurred right after she was told that she could not ride her bike. You seem really hard on yourself. I'm sorry that you want to hit yourself when you get mad at me. Jackie walked away. If she tried to save Katie from her rage, she feared that these outbursts might simply increase. Jackie wanted her to see that she was the only one hurt by her behaviours. Jackie was sad for her, but Katie was not hurting Jackie. Now, the book offers very little insight into this point, and I think we need to stress there are limits here. It's not safe to just casually let a child hurt themselves as much as they want, and I think the impulse in these situations is to stop them, and for a very good reason. However, in a situation like this, why might it cause problems? Two reasons I'm going to mention that are both sort of the same point and both sort of hinted in the extract above. One is that you don't want Katie to feel that the experience of her rage here is unbearable, that it has to just be completely shut down, it cannot be expressed whatsoever. No, Katie, that feeling you have right now, stop it, kill it. It's feeling she's already worried about expressing to Jackie and so putting it back on herself. You don't want to exacerbate that. And a big part of why we want to intervene and stop them is obviously because we're afraid. It draws up a lot of anxiety to see someone hurting themselves, and in a way that's a big part of why they're hurting themselves to begin with. There's an unbearable feeling here that they can't bear to feel, so physically try to expel it. And if you then can't bear to experience it either, then the chances are it might just get worse. You don't want to come across indifferent at all, or perfectly calm in response to this behaviour, but if you appear equally overwhelmed by fear or angry at them doing this, then it just teaches that anger is terrifying and uncontrollable and cannot be contained. I don't think I would walk off in this situation. I suppose that suggests that the harm here must have stopped and Katie had calmed before she walked off. You'd hope she's not just leaving her to be hitting herself. That would be an awful message. But sadness is a good emotion to express, to be seeing the pain beneath this act, both the physical pain it causes and the internal pain that makes her do it in the first place. And then feeling sad to see that's how Katie is feeling. And then the second reason stopping her might cause problems is because expressing a feeling is the first step to processing it. You don't want to teach Katie to shut it down, you want her to process and contain and to be able to think about it. But if you can't think about it either, without shame or overwhelming anxiety, how will she? The next time it happens, Jackie basically encourages her to think about it. Why do you think you hit yourself so much when you get upset? That's not, oh God, Katie, why do you have to do that? With the implication that it's scaring or hurting you. Which is the third reason, actually, the one that extracts did definitely suggest. You don't want to express that their actions are hurting you in a way that might damage the relationship. That's Katie's big fear here, damaging the relationship, being bad. So if she feels like that's what happens, even when she's trying really, really hard not to get mad with Jackie, when she's trying to handle it herself, if even that still harms Jackie in another sense, not physically but emotionally, well then that's just going to magnify the rage upon herself. God, I can't even get this right. I'm useless. Jackie must hate me. Empathy and concern and attempting to understand and contain the emotion has to be at the forefront, basically. But I can't believe how much we've talked about something that was from the previous video, so I should probably move on. Let's go back in time before this moment to the therapy session that followed the Trout Lily incident. At therapy the following week, Alison wanted to help Katie to integrate the important experience that she had with Jackie on Saturday. She was careful not to simply talk about it rationally, since Katie would most likely use the words to minimise the emotional experience the impact had on her. If Alison was to help Katie benefit further from the experience, she would have to facilitate Katie's ability to have the experience again, feelings and all, though without the same level of intensity as she had while alone with Jackie. I think this is a good idea. Just talking rationally about something doesn't always elicit the emotional impact that's best to drive change. And it's a big part about what's effective with play therapy, because you are basically acting out the same experience or emotions again, just in a safer, less scary degree where you're able to think about them. It's just a game, and sometimes you're playing that game with completely different characters. So I think it's a good idea. Again, that's with the obvious disclaimer that launching something like this upon your client could be really damaging, but this far into the book, I think we can now just assume Alison is being mindful to whether or not Katie can manage it, and that they've built a stronger bond that makes it more possible. I don't think I need to stress that stuff anymore. So when it comes around to discussing the Trout Lily incident, Katie is understandably uneasy. Katie, I can tell you're feeling kind of upset that I'm talking about this. I don't want to talk about it, Katie said quietly. I'll bet you don't, Katie, Alison said quietly. Again, in a lot of situations, this could be a good indicator not to proceed. Instead, they suggest that Katie just listens, and she appears to be okay with that. Enough for Jackie to then say this. "You were so confused when you gave the flower to me, and I was disappointed that you'd picked it. You thought, she doesn't want it, she's mad at me for picking it. I can't do anything right. I'm no good, I can never do anything right. She hates me. Well, I hate her too. All those thoughts must have gone through your mind, Katie. And you felt so upset. You were so mixed up, and so mad, and so sad that I wasn't happy with your flower. You hated yourself, and you hated me." I'm not entirely on board with just how much Jackie is pushing the emotion, but again, the context of where we're at in the story, or not the story, the work, is important. And also that Jackie is holding Katie right now. She has her arms around her for pretty much all of the conversation so far. It's very, very important that speaking like this doesn't feel invasive or shaming for Katie, but ultimately a sign of care and comfort. Not just awareness for these deeper feelings in Katie, but genuine care for them. Katie then yells for her to shut up, but she remains in Jackie's arms, which I think is an important signal. Both Jackie and Alison voice again how hard this must be for Katie right now, which is important. They also emphasise again why it's important to talk about, because this was a big confusing feeling Katie had that they can work through, that Alison can help them with. You know, this is a really simple point to say, but I think sometimes people forget it about therapy, that you can always just take a moment to explain to the client, whatever their age, why you're doing a thing you're doing, or if you've explained it before, to remind them why you're doing that, why it might be helpful. And I think that helps them to feel more open and more on board. Because this is difficult right now. Katie's able to listen here, but not to speak for herself, so Alison asks if she can speak as Katie, for Katie, just like she's done in the past. And she then echoes many of the feelings Jackie just mentioned. She says that as though she's Katie talking to Jackie. I don't think I need to read that whole quote, because it's similar lines to what we've just read. But it ends with this. "That made me really mad at you. I'm mad at you for not liking my flower." Alison could see that Katie was now more sad than tense, seeming to want to look at Jackie, but afraid to do so. "I'm mad at you for not liking me," Alison said, with much sadness in her voice. Katie began to cry. She tried to bury her head in Jackie's side. Jackie gently took her face and turned it until she was looking at her again. Alison quietly said, still expressing sadness, "I'm sad that you don't like me. I'm scared that you don't really love me. I'm scared that I'll never be good. I think I'll always be bad. I can't believe that you really love me." Alison sat quietly, as she could see that Katie was struggling to speak, but was having trouble as she shook with tears. Finally, she said in desperation and despair, "I don't think you love me." She burst into tears. Jackie rocked her and hummed quietly as Katie cried. Apart from that it's moving to read, I decided to go back and show this extract to re-emphasise one point essentially, that sometimes the focus isn't reassuring the client out of their insecurities. I talked about this a bit in my video on adolescence, because that show depicted a therapy scene where Jamie expressed that he felt he was ugly, and also that his father was disappointed in him.
How did you feel when you saw that? Shame? You're supposed to say he wasn't. You're supposed to say, "Oh, but he wasn't ashamed. But he just thought that, Jamie."
The psychologist there, Bryony, didn't say, "No, you're not ugly," or "I'm sure your dad wasn't disappointed." She instead asked what it felt like to think that his dad was disappointed, or to believe himself ugly. And for a lot of good reasons, the context in that scene is very different, one being that Bryony isn't there to offer therapy. But Jamie understandably gets upset that she doesn't reassure him. It makes him feel like it was the truth, which isn't ideal. So I'm not saying reassurance doesn't matter at all, because it definitely can. It can be cruel in some instances to not say the thing they're hoping to hear, the reassurance. You don't want to end this scene, for example, with Katie believing she is correct in her fear that Jackie doesn't love her. That would be awful. It's very, very important Jackie is hugging her throughout, and that's also, I think, why it's written that Jackie moves Katie's head to look at her again. Katie tries to bury it in her side, but Jackie lifts her head up so they can see each other. I think that in itself, seeing her face, seeing the connection of eye contact, that there is love there and care and concern for Katie, I think that's what the writing's expressing. However, reassurance isn't enough, and sometimes doing that first can kind of distract focus. It can feel like minimizing the root emotion that deserves space to be expressed and thought about. The fear and sadness that I don't know if Jackie loves me, I find it hard to believe why she would. We can sit with that, you know? We can see Jackie sitting with it, feeling sadness from her, empathy for Katie, showing understanding for Katie, feeling that. And then, yes, of course, Jackie expressing that she loves her. That is then essentially what we get here. I'm not going to read the whole extract of that, but they have a moment together, obviously, and things calm down, and then they get back into a slightly more jokey mood. And then the scene ends with this. I still need to find out what you two did afterward about the rocks, Alison said. Should I tell her, or do you want to? Jackie asked Katie. Katie wanted to smile, but seemed to be a little embarrassed. Finally, she said, I had to clean all the mud out of our clothes with a brush in the sink, and then wash them in the washing machine. Katie then smiled. She also had to help me put a band-aid on my cheek, Jackie added, and they both smiled again. Two nice symbols there that the perceived damage can be repaired. The mud can be washed away, the wound can be plastered in order that it can heal, and Jackie and Katie can both engage in this reparative act together. It's nice. Now let's move on to the second session in this chapter. So yeah, this is still all the same chapter. The same chapter that was from the last video as well. Chapter 16, The Coming Spring. Next episode will be Chapter 17, A New Summer. I don't know how many videos that chapter will make up for, but after that it's Chapter 18, Fear and Joy, and then we get the epilogue. So we are very close to the end now. Let me read an extract from this second session though that could be triggering, in the sense Katie mentioned some of the abuse she suffered, so I'm just going to say that now. During the session of the 5th of June 1995, Alison explored Katie's sense that when she got angry she needed to hurt herself. She stayed in the conversation, as if she was trying hard to make sense of her hitting herself when angry. Katie was now much more receptive to speak about whatever memories she had. Alison calmly asked her if she recalled Mike hitting her when he was angry. She was relaxing with Jackie, often holding her hand or leaning against her with Jackie's arm around her. Alison sat close to them on the couch. He hit me with his belt, just because I turned off the TV that he was watching. He was always mean to me. She spoke loudly about her father, Mike. What did you think when he did that, Katie? I thought that I was bad. But I wasn't bad. He was bad. Alison then said, matching her animation. And he was your father. He was supposed to keep you safe and love you, not hit you. Katie joined in with the same animated tone. I was just little, and he hit me when I would cry too. Oh, Katie, Alison said quietly. He hit you for crying. You were a little girl and he hit you for crying. He did, and he put his hands on my neck, and I couldn't breathe. Katie looked terrified. She pulled away from Jackie, looked at the ceiling and screamed, I couldn't breathe! She continued to scream without words. It's quite obvious this hits a limit for Katie. She was willingly wanting to explore this topic here, but that doesn't mean it can't become too much. And even more so, isn't so much that Katie gets to express what happens to her. Obviously there are positives there, but it's also that she can do so with Jackie right next to her, holding her, and now comforting her. Alison signals for Jackie to try. Alison knew that when a child was revisiting the horror of her past, her reactions were sometimes unpredictable, and she would need an attuned response that stresses safety and co-regulation of her emotion, and that leads her confidently back into the present. Jackie said with some intensity, Katie, you're safe. You're with me, Katie. You're safe. Mike will never hurt you again. You're safe with me. Jackie moved her hand from Katie's arm to her shoulder. then moved closer, and Katie allowed her to pull her to her. "Yes, Katie, you're safe with me. I will not let Mike ever hurt you again. You're safe with me. I will never hurt you for crying. I will never hurt you for anything. You're safe with me, Katie." Jackie started rocking her gently, as Katie melded against her. She kissed her hair and stroked her face and told her again and again that she was safe. Alison quietly waited, while Katie and Jackie gradually pulled apart a bit and smiled. They began to talk quietly, and even began to laugh. They looked at Alison. "Sweetie," Alison said to Katie, "I wish that you didn't have to remember, and even feel again some of all that hurt in order to be well, in order to learn about love from Jackie. I'm sad this is so hard for you. You seemed to remember a time when you couldn't breathe, when Mike made it hard for you to breathe. That was so scary. And then scary again when you remembered it. I'm so glad that you let Jackie help you feel safe, and maybe begin trusting that Jackie will keep you safe, and you won't ever be scared like that again." Katie simply stared at Alison, who continued, "I really think that learning to love parents is worth all of this pain. But I'm not you, sweetie. I can't imagine how hard this must be for you." I can't imagine either. It's incredibly impressive what Katie is able to do here, both what the book suggests might be her remembering this event for the first time, and that she is able to accept comfort and be soothed afterwards. I take slight issue with the wording that Katie has to remember all of this in order to be well. I don't think that's necessarily true, but we can obviously see the positive of what she's exploring here. Doing so in a safe environment, and I think largely what Alison's comment at the end is doing is kind of providing closure to everything that just happened. For one, she's obviously explaining to Katie what happened, because she might not really understand where all that fear came from. You were remembering something from your past. It felt like it was very present, but it's not. You're safe, you're okay. And that I really understand how hard that was to feel. But also providing closure in the sense that this is not so overwhelming I won't speak about it again. Instead, yes, we did just talk about Mike, and it brought up really strong feelings for you that were really scary. We don't have to pretend otherwise. And two, reaffirming again Mike is in the past. That memory felt incredibly present for Katie. That's a big part of what trauma is, but this offers some level of distinction between the terror of the moments it was experienced and that same emotion, but in a safe, present context. Sometimes exploring the past is good in order to remind us that it is the past, that it isn't happening now. This section is really powerful for a lot of different reasons, but that is how the chapter ends, so we will do the same. As I said, the next chapter is called A New Summer, and I think it's going to be a good indication of roughly what to expect. Thank you for watching this video. It's a little community of you who watch them still, but I'm glad to still be here releasing these. And there's another book I want to release some similar videos on soon. I'm hoping to get the chance to do that soon. There's a good reason I want to do that, but I'll discuss that with you another time. For now, like this video if you like it, subscribe. Join my Patreon even as a free member, I would suggest, just as a space to get updates about all the latest videos. Because clicking the bell or looking out for community posts from me to signal there is another Katie video out, it's not a great system. You can't trust the YouTube algorithm. But whenever I release a Katie video, I always mention it on Patreon. And from now on, I'm going to start mentioning every video I release on Patreon, so that anyone who's just a free member doesn't pay anything can just get an update telling them, yes, there is another video here. So do that if you're interested. Otherwise, yeah, hopefully see you next time. And as ever, a special thank you goes to Flying Spider, Luke Hoare, Michael Gallagher, Ben Marie, Thafy, Chad Bramwell and Joshua C. Follier. Thank you.